for Melody Cherie Rogers on Love and Marriage Huntsville. She's officially announced that she will not be returning to the reality TV series. Look, there have been a lot of signs that Melody was done with OWN, that she was done with Carlos, because she unfollowed him. She's said some things on social media, and most recently, she revealed some things about her issues with the show and how it's being produced. And someone, a producer on her show, basically wanted to be her TV manager, and when she said no, she felt as if there was retaliation.
What if everything you thought you knew about Love and Marriage Huntsville was only half the story? What if the real chaos, the betrayals, the tension, the sudden shifts, didn't just happen on camera, but were carefully building behind the scenes this entire time? For years, fans have debated what really caused the cracks in the show. Was it broken friendships? Was it messy relationships? Or was it something deeper? Something no one was supposed to see? Now, after staying silent for so long, Melody is finally opening up. And what she's revealing is changing everything.
Too much going on, I got too much I'm doing. I can talk to you and give you some advice, but you gotta want to do it. I can't spend a whole lot of time talking if you ain't trying to grow. If you ain't trying to grow, you ain't trying to evolve, I can't even spend a whole lot of time talking to you. And you do opposite of what I say, or you ain't listening, and that's just, I've had that situation multiple times in life. And it's like the person has to want to grow and be better and do better. And my hope, what I want for all of us, is I want all of us to grow. Every day is a day and an opportunity for us to grow.
Because this isn't just about drama anymore. This is about control. It's about power. And it's about what really happens when the lines between reality and production start to blur. At first, it all looked like typical reality TV tension. Arguments, misunderstandings, emotional breakdowns, nothing fans hadn't seen before. But according to Melody, that surface-level drama was only a distraction from a much bigger problem growing behind the scenes. And once she started speaking up, everything around her began to shift. But here's the part no one expected. The trouble didn't come from just one person. It came from a system. Let's rewind for a moment, because to understand what Melody is revealing now, you have to understand who she was to the show in the first place. From the very beginning, Melody wasn't just another cast member. She was the emotional core of Love and Marriage Huntsville. Her life, her marriage, her friendships, everything she went through became the heartbeat of the series. Viewers didn't just watch her, they connected with her. They saw her highs, her growth, and most painfully, her breakdowns. Her marriage struggles played out in front of millions. Her personal life became public conversation. Every decision she made was analyzed, criticized, and debated. But through all of that, she remained the one person who kept the story moving forward. That kind of role comes with pressure, real pressure. And over time, that pressure started turning into something heavier. At first, Melody handled it the way many reality stars do. She stayed professional, she showed up, she gave the audience what they wanted. But behind the scenes, things weren't as smooth as they appeared. There were disagreements. There were moments where storylines didn't match reality. There were situations where she felt like her voice wasn't being heard. And slowly, what once felt like an opportunity began to feel like a trap. Because when you're the center of a show like that, you don't just carry the spotlight. You carry the expectations of everyone around you. Producers want ratings, cast members want screen time, and sometimes the truth gets lost in the middle of all that. Melody began noticing patterns, certain narratives being pushed, certain reactions being encouraged, certain conflicts being stretched further than they naturally would have gone. At first, it was subtle, but over time, it became impossible to ignore. And here's where things start to get complicated. Because the tension wasn't just between Melody and production, it started spilling into her relationships with the cast. Friendships that once felt genuine began to feel strategic. conversations started feeling calculated. And disagreements, they didn't just stay disagreements. They became full-blown storylines. That's when Melody realized something wasn't right. But instead of backing down, she started pushing back. She questioned things. She challenged certain narratives. She asked for more control over how her story was being told. And that's when everything changed. Because in an environment built on control, someone asking for independence doesn't go unnoticed. What nobody expected was how quickly the atmosphere shifted once Melody stopped playing along. Suddenly, the same space that once supported her started feeling different, colder, more divided. There were whispers, side conversations, moments where she felt isolated, even when surrounded by people she once trusted. And according to her, that wasn't a coincidence. It was a reaction. Because when one person refuses to follow the script, whether it's written or unspoken, it disrupts the entire system. And not everyone benefits from that disruption. This is where the real drama begins. Not the kind you see on screen, but the kind that builds quietly until it can't be ignored anymore. Melody started noticing that conflicts involving her were becoming more intense, more frequent, and more public. Situations that could have been resolved privately somehow made their way into the spotlight. But here's the twist. She believes that wasn't accidental. According to what she's now revealing, there were moments where tensions were amplified, where certain reactions were highlighted and others were minimized. In other words, the story wasn't always balanced. And when you're the one at the center of that imbalance, it takes a toll. Emotionally, mentally, even physically. Because imagine living your real life, but feeling like parts of it are being reshaped for entertainment. That's not just stressful, it's exhausting. And the more Melody tried to protect her peace, the more resistance she felt. It wasn't just about disagreements anymore. It became about control over her identity, over her narrative, over how the world saw her. At the same time, relationships with cast members were becoming harder to navigate. Trust was fading. Loyalty felt uncertain. Because in a space where everyone has something to gain, it's hard to know who's being real. Melody began pulling back, not just emotionally, but strategically. She became more selective about what she shared, more aware of how conversations could be used, more protective of her personal life. And that shift didn't go unnoticed. In fact, it may have made things worse. Because when someone stops feeding the machine the way they used to, the machine reacts. Storylines began shifting. Focus began changing. And slowly, it felt like Melody was being repositioned, not as the center, but as a piece of the conflict. That's when the idea of leaving started becoming real. Not as a dramatic exit, but as a necessary decision. Because at some point, protecting your peace becomes more important than maintaining your position. And according to Melody, that's exactly what it came down to. But here's what makes her recent revelation so powerful. She's not blaming just one person. She's pointing to something bigger. She's saying the trouble wasn't caused by a single cast member, or a single argument, or even a single decision. It was the environment, the pressure, the constant push for drama, even when it crossed personal boundaries, and the lack of control she had over how her own life was being presented. That's what broke it. That's what created the tension fans were seeing, but never fully understanding. Because from the outside, it looked like relationship drama. But from the inside, it felt like something much deeper. And once she stepped away, everything became clearer. The distance gave her perspective. The silence gave her strength. And now, she's speaking from a place that isn't influenced by pressure or expectation. She's speaking freely. And that freedom is revealing just how complicated things really were. The emotional impact of all this can't be ignored. Because for Melody, this wasn't just a TV experience. It was her real life, her real relationships, her real struggles. And going through all of that in front of an audience, while also feeling like you don't have full control over your story, that's heavy. There were moments of doubt, moments of frustration, moments where walking away probably felt like the only option left. And when she finally did step back, it wasn't just a career move. It was a personal reset, a chance to breathe, a chance to rebuild, a chance to take back ownership of her life. But even after leaving, the conversations didn't stop. Fans kept asking questions, speculation kept growing, and the silence only made people more curious. Until now. Because now, Melody is finally giving insight. Not in a way that creates more chaos, but in a way that explains it. She's not exposing for attention. She's clarifying for understanding. And that difference matters. Because what she's really saying is this: the trouble wasn't just about who did what. It was about how everything was allowed to unfold, and how difficult it became to stay true to herself in a space that didn't always support that. That's the part that hits the hardest, because it reminds you that behind every reality show is a real person dealing with real consequences. And sometimes, the biggest battles aren't the ones you see. They're the ones happening quietly behind the scenes. So now the question isn't just who caused the trouble, it's deeper than that. It's about whether the system itself made that trouble inevitable. Was it the pressure to create drama? Was it the lack of control given to the people living those stories? Or was it the combination of personalities, production, and expectations all colliding at once? Maybe it was all of it. Maybe there was never just one cause. And maybe that's the truth Melody has been trying to reveal all along. Because sometimes walking away isn't about giving up. It's about choosing yourself in a space that stopped choosing you. And now that she's done that, she's no longer tied to the narrative that once defined her. She's writing her own, on her own terms. And that changes everything. So as fans continue to debate what really happened, one thing is clear. This story was never as simple as it seemed. And now that the truth is starting to come out, it's making people look at everything differently. Because when the person at the center finally speaks, the entire story shifts. And this time, Melody isn't holding back.